Welcome to video 2. Here's what you need to find. In your math workbook, you need to find page 107 and rip it out. We're going to be working on that in just a minute. So rip out page 107. Push pause on the video until you get that done. What we're going to do in our journal here is write the statement of why we're using X and to make predictions and things like that. So really all we need here at the bottom of our journal is we're going to be doing I'm going to do a couple yellow stars, probably just 2 of them, and color them in. It's kind of hard to see a colored in yellow star. So then I'm going to take my blue and outline them. This is that indigo color. So I've got 2 stars right here. And what I want to write is that when we make predictions and solve the equation, X is the answer that we're looking for. Like we're solving for X. Okay? So when we make predictions, and solve the equation, X is the answer, or what we are solving for. Okay, so when we make predictions and solve the equations, X is the answer. So we're looking for X. You've probably heard that before, solve for X or something like that. So that's all I want to make sure you understand as we start the next practice part, is that when we are doing this, we're not just throwing in a letter that is confusing. We're just saying that X stands for the product, or X stands for the answer. Okay? So go ahead and make a couple more stars. If you are behind, then don't worry about doing more stars. I'd rather have you get the writing and move on with us. Just so you know, we are looking as X as the answer. Okay? So now turn to page 107. And we're going to be solving some of these right here on our paper, and then we're going to be gluing it in. I actually think it might be helpful to pre-cut the stuff, and then we will show the work in our journal. So what I want is we're going to be looking at all of these practice problems, 1 through 9, and we're going to cut them out. But be careful, because I want to save the bottom part on the back side. So I just said to cut out problems 1 through 9. So go ahead and do that. You can cut it out right with me if you want, or pause the video and get yours cut out. It doesn't matter. But I don't need the directions. We're just going to do these sample problems. So we're going to be doing predicting and multiplying. So look, I just cut out numbers 1 through 9 like that. And then I'm going to flip the paper. So here I am on page 107. I'm going to flip it over to page 108. And I want also number 18. So I don't need to check understanding, but I do want number 18. I'm cutting it as close to the number 18 as possible. Keep the number 18. So here is what I'm left with. I have the 1 through 9 on page 107, and then on page 108 I have just number 18. The rest of these random scraps you can throw away. And these are the 2 little pieces that we are going to be left with, okay? Slide those pieces to the side, and on your journal, we just turned the page from the stars that we had just done. We're going to write up here, making, I think the phrase I want to say is, I just cut off. Yeah, it is predict and multiply. Predict and multiply. So I still have the same colors out. So we're going to be solving for X when it says to actually compute. Compute means just to solve. But we also are going to be making a prediction. And we're going to be predicting whether it will be greater than, less than, or equal to X. Okay? Or equal to what we were given. So let's just go ahead and take our numbers 1 through 9 and glue it in there or tape it in there right underneath what we just wrote. Make sure that you don't cover up any of the holes, and you will want to leave space to be able to show work. So you're going to have to write kind of small. Go ahead and get this glued in. You should have a glue stick at your desk. If you have your own tape, you can use tape. I'm just taping mine really quickly. Okay. So once it's securely in there, let's go ahead and move on. If you are not ready yet, you need to push pause on the video and catch up. Okay, so we're going to predict for this. They're asking us to say, will the answer be greater than, less than, or equal to 3/4? So if I take a fraction and multiply it by a fraction, I want you to think through what that meant. A fraction by a fraction means a piece. Go ahead and write this. A piece of a piece. So we know that it's going to be less than. It's going to be smaller. If you didn't know that, you could easily look back in your journal to the very first page we started on today. And it says, I think as the second one down, it says, when multiplying a fraction by a fraction, you're taking a piece of a piece. The product is less than both fractions. So let's go back to where we were and look at that and just double check it. We took a piece of a piece, and so it was less than 3/4. Guess what? It would also be less than 2/5, but that's not what they're asking. They're asking for it compared to 3/4. So now I do the actual computation, or I solve or compute. So I just go back up here and I do what I know how to do when I multiply fractions. Are there any relationships between the top numbers and the bottom numbers? 2, 5, 3, 4. There are. The 2 and the 4 can both be divided by 2. If 4 gets divided by 2, it becomes 2. If 2 gets divided by 2, it becomes 1. So now I have a 1 times 3 and a 5 times 2, giving me 3/10. So I'm just going to put the answer right here. Final answer when I compute it is 3/10. Just double check. Is 3/10 less than 3/4? Yes, I did it right. Okay, number 2. 6/6. Wasn't that one whole? So this is a whole times a fraction. A whole times a fraction. Well, what do I know that 6/6 is? It's just one whole. You take your pencil and color that in and make it look like a 1. If I do 1 times anything, the answer is going to be equal to that other factor. 1 times anything is just itself. So it's 3/4. That one was really easy. Number 3. Now we have a mixed number and a piece. So we're going to write above it. This is a mixed number and this is a piece. So is my answer going to be greater than, less than, or equal to 3/4? Think about this. I'm going to be doing 1 times that plus 3/7 times that. In fact, you can make little loops if you want. You're going to be doing this, 1 times that, and 3/7 times 3/4, and combining them. Anytime when you're going to be having to combine more pieces, it's going to be greater than. The answer is going to be more than 3/4. So now I have to actually compute it, and I have very little space. So I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to draw an arrow showing that that's where I'm doing my computation. In fact, I'm going to pick up my blue. You should still have your indigo color out. I'm just going to do the work right here. 1 3/7 times 3/4. Multiply, then add. 7 times 1 is 7, plus 3 is 10 over 7 times 3/4. Extend the bar. Look for relationships. The 10 doesn't have a relationship with the 7, but it does with 4. They can both be divided by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5. What about the 3? Does it have relationships with a 2 or 7? Nope. So I have a 5 times 3 and a 7 times 2. A 5 times 3 is 15, and a 7 times 2 is 14. And we know that any time the numerator is 1 more than the denominator, it's just 1 and 1, and then whatever the denominator was. So it's 1 and 1/14. Did that prove to be true? Is that greater than 3/4? Yes. We're doing so good right now. Okay. Number 4. What is 3 over 3, you guys? It's 1 whole. Anytime we have a whole, make it 1. What happens when you do 1 times that number? It's equal to that number. So that is my favorite when we're timesing by 1. So much fun. Number 5 looks like a lot of work. I'm doing a mixed number times a mixed number. Remember that rule. If it's a mixed number times a mixed number, it's greater than both mixed numbers. 2 2/3 times 2 1/2. Well, I'm just going to rework part of that right here. Multiply, then add. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8 over 3. And do this one. Multiply, then add. You should get 5/2. And now I'm looking for relationships. 8 and 3 times a 5 or 2. Extend the bar. Nope. They don't have any relationships. So it's going to be 40 over 6. And you're going to have to fix that. Make sure you're writing smaller. Come down here and write it. 6 goes into 40 6 times. Oh, my goodness. I found a mistake. I caught myself. 8 and 2 have a relationship. Ooh, I should have used my yellow. Helps me pay attention more. 8 and 2 can both be divided by 2. So that will give me 1, and that one will give me 4. Whew. This gives me 20 over 3, which still has to be fixed, but it's a little bit easier. 3 goes into 20 6 times, and that would be like taking away 18 little pieces, so you'd have 2/3 left. Is that true? Is 6 2/3 greater than 2 1/2? Absolutely. Sure is. Okay. Number 6. I'm now taking a piece of 2 1/2. So is it going to be greater than, less than, or equal to 2 1/2? Well, a piece of it is going to be less than that. Then we're going to do this one. So when you multiply, then add, remember we already did 2 1/2, and it's 5/2. So you have 7/8 times 5 over 2. Double check. Are there relationships? I better use yellow. 7 and 8, 7 and 2. 5 and 8, 5 and 2. Nope. This one is real. 35 over 16. Guess what? 16 goes into 35 twice, because it would be 32, and then 3 would be left over. You're welcome for that. And 7, 8, and 9. Number 9 is real easy. Look at number 9. 10 over 10 is 1 whole. So if you're comparing it to 5, it's going to be equal to 5. Really easy. Love that. Should have left that one for last, huh? Let's work backwards. Let's go to number 8. I'm taking a piece of 5. So it's going to be less than 5. And go ahead and write that out. What is the answer? Well, when you times by a whole number, you have to throw a 1 underneath it. And extend. And I see a relationship. Do you? The 5 and the 10. Divide each one by 5. You get 1/2. So 9 times 1 and 2 times 1 gives you 9/2. 2 goes into 9 4 times, and there would be 1 left over. So it would be 4 1/2. Is 4 1/2 less than 5? Yep. Last one. Number 7, let's predict. If I take a mixed number and I multiply it by 5, is it going to be greater than, less than, or equal to 5? Well, I'm going to be doing 5 times 1, which we already know is 5, plus I'm going to be doing a piece of 5 with it. So it's going to be greater than. I love these ones. I think they're pretty cool. I'm going to come and do the work underneath this one right here. So if I did multiply then add, 10 times 1 is 10, plus 1 is 11 over 10 times. How do you make 5 a fraction? You put a 1 underneath it. You extend the bar. There's definitely a relationship again. It's 5/10, or 5 and 10. You divide each one by 5 to get a half. So it's 11 over 2, because 11 times 1 is 11. 2 times 1 is 2. And then you fix it. 2 goes into 11 5 times. And that would be having 1 left over. So it's 5 and a half. Is 5 and a half more than or greater than 5? Yep. So I did all of that correctly. Can you see how much effort that takes to first make the prediction and then compute and then check that your answer was right? It's going to be a lot of work. We just have one more thing to do, and then I'm going to set you free. Here we go. Number 18. Please get that glued in. You're going to need space below it for sure. So get that glued or taped in as quickly as possible. Push pause on the video if you can't do it as quickly as I can. Number 18, I want you to read that problem and really think through what it's asking. The number of students on the football team is 1 3/4 times the number of students on the basketball team. It means there's a little more because they have 1 would be equal to, plus they have a little bit more. There are 16 students on the basketball team. Are there more or fewer than 16 students on the football team? We already just answered that. There are more. Because, right, they're going to have 16 because that's 16 times 1. So the problem is this. It's 1 3/4 times 16. So they're going to have 16 plus some more. So now we're solving that. So we're going to multiply then add. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 3 is 7 over 4. How do you make a whole number a fraction? You just put a 1 underneath it. Looks like this. And extend and look for relationships. 7 and 4, 7 and 1. 16 and 1, 16 and 4. There it is, 16 and 4. Divide each one by 4. 16 divided by 4 is 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. And now there's just 1s on the bottom. So what's 7 times 4? 28. 1 times 1 is just 1. And we know that equals 28. So how many students are on the football team? There are 28 students on the football team. That makes more sense. More people go out on the football field at once than they do on a basketball court. There are 28 students on the football team. In fact, basketball, you send 5 people out. Football, do you know how many you send? It's 11. Hopefully you were right on that. Okay, so that was us doing a real world problem. So if you have not already picked up the homework and remembering for now, you will need to go grab it. But here's what it looks like. You're going to do the same things we were doing on the practice. So look in your journal for help if you need it. And then you're going to actually compute. So you predict based on what's happening, and then you actually compute. I really want you to use your journal. In fact, I really want you to write that. Use your journal. I'm just going to write journal. It's going to help you a lot through these. Then you have 2 real world problems. I think you'll be able to handle that just fine. And then on the remembering, you're going to look at the graph and answer some questions. And then you have to do these each fraction boxes. They're not even numbered. Like it just says complete each fraction box. So you do have to do those, but you do not have to do stretch your thinking. Have a good time with that. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you next time.